magnitude of what has happened today is not lost on me, but with it comes great responsibility.
Tonight, no surprises. Labor claims victory in Western Australia's state election, with Mark McGowan set for another term after heavy praise of the Premier's COVID-19 response throughout last year, him being dubbed Mr. 90%. It's Sunday the 14th of March. You're watching 6 News. Also tonight,
You're misunderstanding me. The first dose will be administered by the end of October. That's what I meant.
several European nations suspend their AstraZeneca vaccination program following reports of blood clots in some people who had the jab, but the PM says that the doses are safe. And later, Australia's music industry facing a mental health crisis as COVID-19 takes its toll on vulnerable workers, with many venues now uncertain over whether to let local musicians perform again.
Some of them, I would say, have suffered from varying degrees of depression as a result of not being able to get out and play.
And a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Coming up a little later, we will be talking about rhinos, not the animals. Here's a hint, Donald Trump isn't a fan of them. That's coming up a little later, though. First to that big story breaking overnight, Labor has claimed victory in WA's state election, meaning another term for Mark McGowan. The man, dubbed Mr. 90% because of his approval rating, rose to popularity over the past 12 months because of his COVID-19 response, with the Liberals even conceding weeks prior. Let's bring in Chief Reporter Connor, our 4K live for us tonight. Connor, this result really didn't surprise anyone, including the opposition.
Yeah, that's right, Leo. The Liberals have been wiped out in an election bloodbath that leaves Western Australia painted in an ALP red. News polls predicted a landslide victory for McGowan, and yesterday it came. Just over half an hour after polling booths closed, some had already called the election. And it's not hard to see why. The results are truly staggering, the swings historic. Traditionally Conservative seats turned red as dozens of Liberal MPs lost their seats. The Liberals are on track to hold just 3 seats. That's less than the Nationals, who are set to be the new opposition at a predicted 4. But as is always the case in politics, one man's devastation is another's fortune. McGowan securing a second term, and this time a projected 52 out of 59 seats. It's one of the country's biggest ever election wins, bettering the result in 2017, when Labor received 41 seats and crushed the Liberals to a minor party with just 2. But official results for this year's election may not be known for weeks due to the number of early votes. Off the back of this year's election win, McGowan, whose approval rating reached 91% during the pandemic, has been declared Australia's most popular premier. He's been the subject of TikToks and tattoos, some comparing him to a cult figure. His mantra of safe and strong in relation to his state border policies formed the centre of his campaign and appears to have won over voters. And if last year's election in Queensland is anything to go by, or Jacinda Ardern's recent victory in New Zealand, it appears that during the pandemic, the public will tend to favour incumbent governments. Here's what both party leaders had to say last night.
The magnitude of what has happened today is not lost on me, but with it comes great responsibility. To my opponent, Zac Kirkup, and to the Liberal Party, opposition leader is a very, very difficult and sometimes thankless job, I know well.
This is a very difficult loss. It is one that I take full responsibility for. I will not continue in parliamentary politics. I will not continue to seek office. The reality is, I think it's important that we rebuild the party as best as we can. And from my perspective, that means that I will no longer seek office for the Liberal Party.
We want Zac. We want Zac.
It is important that we do all we can to make way for a new generation.
If McGowan feels humbled, 34-year-old Kirkup says he is gutted. The Liberal leader losing his seat of Dawesville, the first party leader to lose their seat in 88 years. He's described it as difficult and devastating, and as promised, bowed out of politics after his party's monumental loss. Kirkup saw that the election was unwinnable weeks ago when he made an extraordinary mid-campaign concession. It leaves the Liberals without party status, meaning it would not qualify for some important parliamentary resources. LNP Senator Matt Canavan tweeted last night that West Australians have spoken. They don't want their coal-fired power stations to shut. He's been ridiculed online for what some have labelled a delusional take. And Leo, on a lighter note, many on social media have been mocking the tiny amount of seats the Liberals now hold. We saw the ABC's Jane Norman say that the Liberal Party's lower house candidates now look like they'd be able to fit inside a Toyota Corolla, or potentially even smaller than that, while many have compared the ABC's election map to a strawberry. The left faction of the New South Wales Labor Party has also posted an image of Mark McGowan completely dominating WA. Whichever way you put it, this is certainly an election that will go down in history.
Alright, Connor, our 4K live for us tonight, thank you. And for the latest on WA's election, you can head to our partners at WAMN News. You can find them at WAMN News on social media and at wamnnews.com.au online, as well as at our own website, 6newsau.com. To the other big story tonight, and a number of European nations have suspended their AstraZeneca vaccination program following reports of blood clots in some people who had the jab. Austria was one of those countries stopping their use of the batch and beginning an investigation into a death from a pulmonary embolism, while Denmark suspended the shots for a fortnight after a 60-year-old woman that was given AstraZeneca shot formed a blood clot and died. However, the European Medicines Agency, or EMA, has said that the number of cases of blood clots in vaccinated people was no higher than the general population, adding that there only have been around 30 instances of issues reported so far amongst the almost 5 million Europeans who have had the jab. The PM is standing by AstraZeneca, telling reporters that Australian health authorities have not raised any concerns. There is no need to pause the rollout. It comes as the federal government faces ongoing criticism over the rollout. Now, in January, the government said it wanted to have 4 million vulnerable Australians vaccinated by early February, but right now, only about 150,000 people have actually been vaccinated. Well, following the rape allegations made by Brittany Higgins and the historical allegations made against Attorney General Christian Porter, a March for Justice is set to go ahead across the country tomorrow. The idea was created by Melbourne woman Janine Hendry and has expanded from a protest at Parliament House to a nationwide event in capital cities and regional areas. The idea of the marches is to address quote-unquote sexism, misogyny, dangerous workplace cultures and lack of equality in politics and the community at large, with everyone invited to attend, but they are encouraged to champion the voices of women. Again, that march is tomorrow. We'll have full coverage on our website, 6newsau.com. A man who tried to blackmail his former partner by threatening to share intimate images and videos of her has been jailed in a landmark revenge porn case. The 26-year-old student has become the first person to be prosecuted under new Commonwealth laws in South Australia, pleading guilty to 2 charges. Nine News reports that police found quote-unquote 4 months' worth of threatening and offensive messages from the man to the woman after examining his phones and computers. The man was sentenced to 1 year and 25 days in prison, but is set to be released after 2 months on an 18-month good behaviour bond. There are ongoing calls for Australia to become a republic after Prince Harry and Meghan Markle both made claims of racism against the royal family. Former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull said that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's interview with Oprah have bolstered his argument for Australia to cut its constitutional ties to the British monarchy, telling ABC Radio that it was clear from the interview that the royals are an unhappy family. Now, it's important to note that right now the monarch of the UK, Queen Elizabeth, is also recognised as the head of state in Australia and several other Commonwealth countries that were all former British colonies. Australian Republicans have been for years calling for a US-style system where the head of the state is elected to the office directly by the citizens of Australia. Now, a last major vote on it was a referendum in 1999, which was defeated despite pro-republic views being favoured in opinion polls. What are your thoughts? You can let us know in the comment section below. Australia's music industry is facing a mental health crisis as COVID-19 takes its toll on vulnerable workers. Many venues across the nation are now uncertain over whether to let local musicians perform again, with the Live Music Business Council calling on governments to help people get back to work. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has the details.
It's been a tough 12 months for the Australian music sector, with restrictions and lockdowns seeing many quitting the industry.
The music that I have created over the past sort of year or so, I haven't been able to get out there and play that for people.
In Victoria, an RMIT survey found that COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on the state's music industry, with 58% of workers considering leaving. The ABC reports that there appears to be an increase in workers taking their own lives, with the industry now facing a mental health crisis.
You're always there for me, but I took your love for granted.
Cam Sterling has been busking since 2016, playing at a local pub and setting up a program for fellow musicians in the inner Melbourne suburb of Hawthorn.
Some of them, I would say, have suffered from varying degrees of depression as a result of not being able to get out and play.
From February to August 2020, more than 26,000 jobs were lost in the Victorian arts and recreational service sector. 44% of survey respondents lost all their music-related work during the pandemic, with those in full-time employment dropping from 34% to just 7%.
Different people have reacted in different ways. Some of my musical friends have used it as a real opportunity to record, and they've used it as an opportunity to connect with people via online mediums. But for people in the grassroots level who don't really have that audience, it's been really, really tough.
There's now ongoing concerns that venues won't allow musicians to play inside again because of fears surrounding the amount of people inside amid ongoing restrictions.
A lot of the pubs have dried up, so to speak. The pubs are not running local music at the moment because, it's been really hard for them. They don't really have any budget. They're a bit nervous about how many patrons they're going to get in.
If this story has raised any issues for you, you can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
Stolen sunrise down on Bondi.
A Liberal Party donor who developed relationships with Australia's Assistant Treasurer Michael Sucker and MP Gladys Liu reportedly engaged in acts of foreign interference and activities for Beijing, according to domestic spy agency ASIO. The bombshell findings are contained in Chinese businessman Ha Lu's court application to fight the government to avoid deportation, with the ABC reporting that ASIO found that the Chinese national had engaged and was at risk of engaging in activities which constituted acts of foreign interference. Mr. Liu, however, claims that an official translator made material errors in a security assessment interview conducted just days after his visa was revoked, accusing the agency of denying him a fair process. The findings will be tested in a one-day trial later this year. Qantas has begun its first passenger trial of a so-called vaccine passport system, which they say will be necessary for overseas travel when Australia's international border reopens. The airline said it used the Common Pass digital health app on a government repatriation flight, one of several digital apps that companies have been using as a way to certify that travellers have undergone necessary COVID-19 tests and potentially vaccinations. Health providers are currently able to send verified results and records directly to the app, giving a simple yes or no notifications to tell officials whether the traveller is permitted to fly. But it's raised privacy concerns amongst a number of people because of the information being given to government officials and many other officials. Qantas is currently planning for international travel to resume in late October this year, when it believes Australia will open the international border following the completion of our vaccine rollout. And meanwhile, former President Donald Trump has sent out a number of statements calling on his supporters to stop donating to Rhinos. But what exactly is he talking about? Well, starting with the basics, Rhinos stands for Republican in name only, regarding politicians in the GOP who may be more moderate, centre-right, or just simply centrist. or are against Trump, like for instance former presidential candidate Mitt Romney. Division in the GOP is right now at an all-time high, with the party split between those in the MAGA movement and those more traditional Republicans. It comes amid more rumours about a potential 2024 presidential run from the 45th Commander-in-Chief, with the majority of people in his party surveyed supporting another campaign. There's been more bloodshed on the streets of Myanmar, with around a dozen people killed in ongoing clashes with security forces. In one town, police shot into a crowd of unarmed people, killing at least 8, with images posted online showing the town's roads streaked with blood and bodies laying crumpled and lifeless in the street. While another unverified image, which we won't show, captures a body that can be seen with its head blown apart and brain remnants spilled onto the road. At least 80 people have been killed since Myanmar's military coup in February, while hundreds more have been injured. Security experts across the world remain alarmed about the large Chinese-linked hack of Microsoft's Exchange email service a week after the attack was first reported. The tech giant attributed to the attack to a network of hackers it calls Hafnium, a group that is quote-unquote assessed to be state-sponsored and operating out of China. The breach may have targeted hundreds of thousands of Exchange users right across the world, with a number of vulnerabilities in Microsoft's software allowing hackers to access servers for the email and calendar service. And a source familiar with the US government investigation into the attack told CNN that it has the potential to affect organisations that are critical to everyday life in America. Dozens of jobs are set to go at Channel 9 after the network announced a new affiliation agreement with Win Television. Let's go over the basics first. Right now, programs from the 9 network are aired in regional Australia, which does include Tassie and the ACT, but not the NT, via Southern Cross or Stereo on Channel 5. Channel 10's programming, meanwhile, is shown via Bruce Gordon's Win TV on Channel 8. But this new deal means all of that will swap, so Channel 9 on Channel 8 and Channel 10 on Channel 5. Now, if this all seems confusing to you, and well, it is, it's important to note this is not the first time such a swap has happened. In fact, the opposite of this all happened in mid-2016 when 9 dumped its long-standing agreement with Win, but now it's all returning to the way it was for around 2 decades. Now, this change majorly affects local news across Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland, with 9 News local bulletins set to be scrapped, while Win News will now air at 5:30pm before the 6 o'clock news. It's also been reported that Sky News on Win may not continue once the affiliation swap goes ahead. 6 News understands that 9 is closely working with Win and Prime Television to redeploy dozens of journalists across regional areas. Now, here's something really interesting. TV Black Box is reporting that 9's channels will continue to carry their own branding in regional markets, but Win will utilise some of its own branding with slogans such as "You're watching Channel 9 on Win Wagga." The changes all come into effect on July 1, exactly 5 years after the last affiliation swap. A Pakistani court has ordered the ban of TikTok, citing obscene material as the main reason. The High Court's Chief Justice described the videos uploaded on the popular platform as being unacceptable for Pakistani society and ordered the country's internet regulator to ban the service until it put in place content controls deemed acceptable by the court. In a statement, TikTok challenged the ruling, saying it does have strong safeguards in place to keep inappropriate content off the platform. It came several months after India also banned the popular app, and the US proposed a ban that never went ahead. So, of course, you can still see plenty of Americans on the app, and you can also see us, 6 News AU. Just search that and you will find us. Meanwhile, we told you last Sunday about that vegan teacher being banned from TikTok, and she's now in hot water over a YouTube video, which I do warn you, you may find this offensive. You can see that she literally spells out the N-word on a piece of paper next to a black doll. Here is that footage, promoting it to quote-unquote reclaim words. Now, one viewer commented, "What the literal F is wrong with you?" while the video got heavy backlash from many on TikTok. Many simply calling that vegan teacher, whose real name is Katie Karen Dickmeyer, a racist. We'll check in tomorrow's forecast right across the country for tomorrow now. Brisbane showers a top of 24, 25 on the Gold Coast, 21 in Sydney, 22 and sunny in the nation's capital Canberra, 21 in Melbourne, also 21 in Hobart, also 21 in Adelaide, 21 right across the country right now, though 24 in Alice Springs, 30 in Perth, and in Darwin, heavy rain, a top of 31. Just quickly before we go tonight, if you haven't heard me mention it tonight or see it on the bottom of your screen right there, we now have a website for 6 News. So regardless of which social media platform or how many you're on, you can always head to 6newsau.com for 24/7 updates. Plus, you can also meet the team and learn more about us. Again, that's 6newsau.com. And that is 6 News for this very busy Sunday evening. You can stay up to date with all the latest news by following us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lit. Just search 6 News A to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.